And welcome into the MLB Hot Stove Daily here on a Monday night, very late. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe and join us here at the Upside Sports Network as we're going to keep you guys up to date on all the latest from the MLB Hot Stove season, and find us on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. We had a little bit of news today, not a whole lot, but we begin with the kind of the bigger story out of New York as they have finally dealt away Jeff Mcneil, a deal that we've been talking about for a couple months now. We knew this was kind of a marriage that was going to come to an end. It was just a matter of how. I predicted the A's were going to be the team that was going to take this deal on, primarily because they're trying to add a little bit of salary right now, as these smaller market teams are trying to justify to the Players Association during their CBA negotiations next year that they're willing to spend a little bit more money. Now, Mcneil does help to raise their floor offensively. I think they have some really nice pieces offensively for the A's. Their lineup necessarily wasn't an issue for me. Of course, the starting rotation, the bullpen are going to be issues going forward. But I think this kind of raises the floor here. Doesn't necessarily raise their ceiling, but gives you a expectation from a guy who's been a major leaguer for a long period of time. Maybe he can instill some good work habits for at least a year while he's there with the A's. And if he has a great first half, maybe they decide to peddle him at the deadline. More than likely, though, he's going to finish the season with the A's. They're going to go ahead and buy him out of his deal. And the Mets are sending over a little bit of cash, obviously, to offset this salary. So Mets basically save a little bit of money here. They offload another piece off of their active roster, giving them some flexibility, and basically pick up a DSL 17, 18-year-old rookie guy who's going to be 6 years away from the majors right now until he gets to that level. Now, is this a difference-making move for either team? No. I think this is more of roster clearing and saving a little bit of salary more than anything else for the Mets. We do hear a couple of rumblings about them being in on Ketel Marte. Now, obviously, they made the trade for Marcus Semien. I don't think you're getting a Gold Glover off of that position, even though Marte is the younger player, and to me, the far better player. I think you're more likely to see Marte even play over there at third base or in the outfield if they did acquire him. But then the question becomes, what do you do over there at third base with Beatty, who suddenly finds himself as the fourth longest tenured New York Met? So congratulations, Mets, to at least giving yourself some flexibility. Congratulations, A's, on at least attempting to look like you're trying to spend money and compete. I wouldn't say this is necessarily a competitive move for them, but it does give them some more consistency in the lineup, less swings as far as high performance a couple of weeks, low performance the next. I think he can at least give you a better baseline going forward here. The professionalism I think is going to be highly needed in a very young clubhouse on the offensive side, and we'll have to see what they can do offensively. Of course, the thing's still there in Oakland, or in, I guess you'd say the A's down in Sacramento, eventually Las Vegas, is what are they going to do in the starting pitching realm? They did the Luis Severino deal. They did the Springs deal. Obviously, the rotation is still a work in progress. Do they go out there and add a big piece? I doubt they do that this year, even though they're trying to spend a little bit of money. But maybe they add somebody on a 2-year deal that really isn't worth the money. Kind of like what they did with Severino, who was a nice player anyway, but certainly wasn't worth the money that he got to me. I thought he was kind of right at the upper echelon of what he could possibly earn in free agency if somebody overpaid, and that's what he got from the A's. I think if they go down that route again, they could easily find themselves another, number 3, 4 type starter, but I doubt they land one of the big fish in this year's free agent class. Got several people. The microphone sounds like a buzzsaw. Ouch. Let me unplug it and plug it back in then. Interesting. I wonder if it was coming through my phone. That's weird. My phone was saying it was connected to my audio for some reason. Anyway, maybe that's why I sounded so awful. Rangers sleepy. They are pretty sleepy as far as not making any moves really of consequence as of yet. I hope the A's know that an ace, or know they need an ace. Otherwise, they're just going to end up in third place, maybe fourth. The lineup is fine. I think even if they added an ace, they're not necessarily going to jump to the top of the division. I think the division is still very talented. Astros, Mariners, Rangers, all in that group there. I think if they added an ace, they'd be right in competition for a number 3, 4 spot, kind of like where they are right now. I think everybody in the division is better than the Angels. I think that goes without saying, but that's not saying a whole lot. Let's see here. Speaking of teams that need to do more, I know they won't. But if the the White Sox get an ace and another pitcher and decide to keep Robert, they could sneak into the playoffs as a wild card. Possibly if the young guys continue to take another step there, I'll agree with you there. But interesting note there on Murakami. Everybody's kind of, with the idea of having him play over there at third base. Looks like the White Sox are going to be playing him primarily at first base, which was an option we talked about, but a little bit surprising to see them go ahead and make the move that he's going to be their primary first baseman going into the year. Question is, how does he adapt to MLB pitching? From a lot of scouts out there, they believe he's going to take some time to really get the swing and miss out of his game and at least adapt to Major League pitching. So you might still see the power numbers, but the average probably won't be there early on. And hopefully, as he gets used to playing in the U.S., that number will start to rise as the year goes along. But again, season's a little longer, dog days of summer, those kinds of things. I'm not necessarily expecting a big uptick even at that point, but I do expect a year to jump once he establishes himself in the big leagues. It's always a big change for international guys first coming over, and let's just be patient with him. I think he's going to be good for the White Sox overall. Love the deal for them, top to bottom. I'm Heel. Also, are the Mets dumb, or are they about to do something like sign someone big? Because if I'm a Mets fan, I'm anxious as can be. I'm not a Mets fan, and I'm already anxious. This is a complete and utter gutting of that organization. All the old heads who used to be there, Nimmo, Alonso, all that old guard is now gone. The longest tenured player now is David Peterson, and that's not exactly the most, how do I put this, the most Met guy, I guess you could put at the top. Lindor now finds himself as the second longest tenured Met. Mets are certainly going through a little bit of an upheaval process, and I think they still got a little bit more to do. I do think Peterson is one of the names you could see moving out the door. Beatty's another one if they do bring in one of the bats that you mentioned there. But the Mets, this has been a tumultuous offseason, and I'm not going to be sold, even if they add some big bats here, that all is going to be hunky-dory. To me, the rotation still is the biggest issue. Now you've weakened your lineup by not bringing back Alonso and all the changes that you've made. I'd say your offense is certainly worse, but has your lineup, or has your rotation gotten any better to combat that? I'd argue your bullpen is arguably worse, with Edwin Diaz now gone back there. I do love the addition of Luke Weaver, whose deal became official today. But Devin Williams, I still have my questions about. Maybe it's just one down year with the Yankees last year, at least a down first half anyway. Looked a little bit better in the second half, but I still have lots of questions about this Mets pitching staff, and they haven't really done anything to assuage my concerns. Andrew, do any of the big three free agents sign before Christmas? Well, it's late on the 22nd here Central Time. It's about to be the 23rd. So you basically have 2 days. So does any of those top free agents sign in the next 2 days? Bellinger, not a chance. Bregman, I would say the market is reasonably hot on him right now. Several different several different reporters are now saying, now that they've gotten back to their jobs and worked didn't really post anything over the weekend, that they're finally catching up to the news cycle, that the Blue Jays are a serious competitor for Bregman, that the Diamondbacks are now emerging as a suitor for him as well, but only in the event that they're moving on from Marte. Does that mean that the Bregman deal waits for Marte and then see if they can get the bidding war up between teams like the Diamondbacks and the Blue Jays? Could be. But to answer your question there, do any of the three big free agents sign before Christmas? I'm leaning towards no at this point. We're just getting a little too close, and I think Bregman ultimately is going to take a little bit longer now with his market still looking like it's developing. As far as Tucker, I think he's probably going to sign before Bellinger. It sounds like Bellinger wants to see what Tucker ultimately gets and then see if he can get a little bit of a bidding war before he signs shortly thereafter. Where do I think Bellinger goes? I still think one of the New York teams most likely. A or B, take your pick, Mets or Yankees. I think it's very close either way. Probably 80%, 81% he ends up on one of those two clubs. Other teams to kind of keep an eye out for are going to be the wild cards here. Any team from a team like the Rangers, who would really ideally love to have a bat exactly like that in their lineup. Are they able to squeeze enough out of the couch cushions to be able to get him in there? Remains to be seen. Other teams that have been on the periphery of this include the Blue Jays. Pretty much any team that's looking for a first base upgrade as well. Outfielder, Bellinger has that flexibility to where he can fit a lot of different clubs. And of course, his former club in the Chicago Cubs cannot be ruled out either. I keep seeing a lot of Cubs fan sources, take that for what it's worth, that they are seriously interested in bringing him back. They're at least open to the idea. And I think that's more lip service from the fan base, really trying to drum up the interest there, put some pressure on the front office to at least, stay in it for Tucker there. But I just don't think it's going to happen for Kyle Tucker going there. As far as Bellinger, same kind of a thing. Let's see here. Becker, welcome in. John, welcome back. Appreciate you guys joining us once again. Will Cashman sign a player before Christmas? Well, he already did. He signed Rosario. But do I think he's going to make a big signing, say if Bellinger decides to come back before Christmas? Do I think that type of player comes in? No. I think there's a good chance he could sign a bullpen arm before then, though. The market for starting pitching might take till after Christmas to really get going for the Yankees and other clubs that are in on Imai and others. Now that Murakami's off the board, I think Bregman signs around the second week of January. Possibly. I wouldn't be shocked at that timeline. I also wouldn't be shocked if it took just a little longer. I don't think we're going to see him going to spring training without a club, though. I think he had that experience last year where he really doesn't want to have to worry about that again, and I do think he'll get the deal he's looking for. He is a very good player. Red Sox can't be ruled out as a suitor for him returning. I did hear one rumor today about the Red Sox kind of pivoting from Ketel Marte now to Brendan Donovan, who they view as a lower cost to try to acquire. I wonder if the Red Sox and other teams are just so completely miffed at the contract, or at least the trade ask anyway for Ketel Marte. It is certainly a seller's market on the pitching side. On the hitting side, with so many second basemen out there, I'm kind of surprised to see prices continue to remain high, at least from the outside looking in, on guys like Donovan Marte. They're good players, don't get me wrong, but to overpay for those players makes that value a little bit less. So something to kind of keep an eye on here over the next week or so is where that second base market ultimately ends up. I saw the White Sox and Reds are back in trade talks for Luis Robert. I saw that as well. Would I be shocked if he went to Cincinnati? No, but this is the 9th time we've heard that same song and dance in the last year and a half alone. I'll believe it when I see it at this point. You think Imai goes to the Yankees? I think there's probably a 35 to 40% chance he goes there. I think there's a 35-40% chance he goes to the Cubs, and then take your pick among any other team who could use a starting pitcher of his caliber and still afford him. Bellinger as a Ranger just makes too much. I hope CY gives him whatever he wants and starts him in center. But if Berger doesn't work, he can play first. To me, I would rather him play first base. I don't want him getting injured. I want him to stay healthy. And I think having him in the lineup every single day is far more important. Now, if you bring him in and he's your everyday first baseman, you're still going to have to bring in a right-handed hitting outfielder. Speaking of the right-handed hitting outfielder, the Mariners did bring in Rob Refsnyder, probably the best platoon right-handed hitting outfielder in the game right now. 1 year, $6+ million. An outfield that's already seemed cluttered over the last, 6-7 years. Has certainly seen some nice turnover out there. And I think this is the latest in a long line of outfielders that they're expecting to get some decent levels of production from. But as far as the Rangers' avenue to getting a Bellinger, I do think he's going to make a pretty penny. But if you don't spend that money in free agency and you have the extra money to go out there and add a big lineup improvement like Bellinger, I think they could very well do so. For instance, if they were able to acquire an Edward Cabrera from the Marlins, I think that type of a trade for a number 4 starter, the cost would be very low, obviously, for a dollars and cents perspective. The prospects would be a little bit pricey, of course, but that would be, or they could open up ways for playing time for Bellinger if they really wanted to. If they did the trade for Cabrera, they could include Josh Young in that deal, move Berger over there as kind of a platoon over there at third base with Duran and Smith and whoever else they want to put over there, and then first base you got Bellinger. I think that would probably be how that lineup would work if they decided to go that route. But again, still seen as a long shot to me. But I just think he absolutely fits to a T what the Rangers are trying to do. And I would not be surprised that they're the team that's kind of gumming up the works for a Bellinger deal. Will there be any trades before Christmas? I do think we'll get one of these trades done here in the next couple of days. One of the other second basemen I think will go. As far as bigger starting pitchers like Cabrera and others, I think those will probably take place after Christmas at this point. Is it possibly my signs before Christmas because he only has around 14 days or so before his deadline? Doubtful, possible, but I think he's going to take his time with this one. I would expect that one much closer to New Year's than Christmas. Why hasn't Fairbanks signed with the team yet? Because of widespread interest. Relievers are just starting to get the market rolling for them. Once those guys really go, once one of the bigger guys gets going here, I think the rest will certainly follow suit. We are after the winter meetings at this point. We're getting close to Christmas. Usually around this time is when the reliever market starts to take off, and Fairbanks is one of the better relievers on the market this year. We'll see where he ends up going. Let me pull up my screen here for you guys. One other piece of news that I saw, and just kind of caught my eye anyway. I was curious about Waldichuk, who was DFA'd by the A's today for the Mcneil deal. And I just remember that trade a couple of years back anyway, when the Yankees sent him and a couple other prospects to the A's to be able to bring in 2 different pieces from Oakland. One, Frankie Montas, and 2, they brought in the reliever Lou Trevino. Now, the deal itself didn't work out great for either side. Obviously, Montas had his issues in New York, and then, of course, the trade itself for the A's really didn't yield them any long-term assets here. Sears obviously gone from the organization. Waldichuk now hasn't really performed in each of his last 2 seasons and finds himself out in a team that's desperate for starting pitching. But I just love the way the AI overview worked. Just read that AI overview. It's perfect. Ken Waldichuk was a top Yankees prospect, traded to the A's on August 1st, 2022. In a major deadline deal for Montas and Trevino. The Yankees received prospects Waldichuk, Sears, Medina, Bowman, and returned with Waldichuk, the number 5 prospect, viewed as a key future starter for Oakland, though he has since faced injuries and was recently DFA'd today by the A's, according to MLB Trade Rumors. That's a really great summary by AI, and what a new world we're in where AI can give you a really nice synopsis like that. Sure, they give you a nice little snippet here or there as far as a player notes before, but that's a really well put together AI review on Ken Waldichuk. That's exactly what I would write on his Wikipedia page or on the back of his baseball card right now. That's his claim to fame, that he was part of a big trade and didn't work out as a top prospect in the Yankees system, that was traded to the A's and it just didn't work out there for him. Just really cool to see how AI can be used in some instances like this for good. And I really like that synopsis. It just kind of caught my eye how well that was put together. Anyway. Let's see here. Why hasn't... we just did that one. Will the Yankees get Justin Verlander? I doubt it, but he would be the type of pitcher I could see them signing if they don't get their top choices. Michael King, obviously going back to the Padres, was one of those. I heard differing opinions on how significant their interest was. I still think that their need for starting pitching is there, but I still think they have some good arms in their system. They don't necessarily need a number 1, and I think for them, guys like Framber Valdez, guys at the top like Imai, really are kind of a luxury for them. To me, there's more for them to do in the bullpen and in that lineup to help out Aaron Judge a little bit. But overall, if they add another starter, pitching is the name of the game nowadays, and if you have a really good rotation, you really have a chance to go far in October. Why is it taking so long for Bellinger, Tucker, and Bregman to sign? Welcome in, Marvin. If you guys are new here, be sure to hit that like and subscribe. Got about 27 of you guys with us. If you want to support our channel, super chats are always a welcome way. And to find us on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. To answer your question, why is it taking so long? Primarily because Tucker is just trying to drive up his price a little bit here. He's letting his agent really lead this thing. And Tucker, remember, when he was with the Astros, the reason why they made the deal is because he wanted to experience free agency. I don't think he's in a rush to sign a deal. I think he's going to get the deal he wants, whether it's a 4-year deal with $200 million on it for $45 to $50 million in average annual value, or if he wants to take a 10-year mega deal, $300 to $400, maybe even more $1 million. So those are his options, and I think he's just kind of taking his time with it because I think he wants to enjoy this free agency process, and I think he is. He's going to do very well no matter where he ends up going. But as far as the other guys, Bregman, I think he's going to have to figure out where he wants to play first and foremost, and is the money right for him to go there? I think his preference last year, if I remember correctly, was to go to, was it Detroit he wanted to go to? And ultimately Detroit just never offered him a long-term deal, so he took the biggest short-term deal he could with the Boston Red Sox and got the opt-outs in there. Does he do that again this year? I doubt it. I think he wants to cash in and get a long-term deal, which is going to take a little bit of time, but I don't think it's going to take nearly as long as it did last year. As far as Bellinger, I think his market originally looked a lot closer to developing before Kyle Tucker, but reports came out during the winter meetings on the first day of the winter meetings that Bellinger is content waiting until Tucker signs, so at least his offers can be bumped up a little bit by teams who miss on Kyle Tucker. I saw the Phillies have been trying to make trades but don't have the prospects in their system to do so. I saw that as well. They do have the prospects at the very top. They just don't want to deal them. So if you're not willing to deal them, you don't really have much to trade. It's going to be tough to really make significant improvements to your roster, but there are ways that they can at least work around the edges of that thing and around the margins of that team and make themselves a little bit better. Let's see. Go ahead and head over to MLB Trade Rumors and just check out other news and notes. Former MLB player, anyway, Corey Dickerson is now the first base coach of the Rays. Good on him. We talked about the Reds and their interest in Luis Robert. Guardians did sign another minor league deal with Cody Hewer. White Sox signed former Rangers farmhand Dustin Harris to a minor league deal. Now with Murakami over there at first base, he's going to be blocked there as well. And I don't think they're necessarily going to be rushing Dustin Harris up to the big league level. Of course, he could play a little bit in the outfield for the White Sox, but again, he's a nice player, but I think he was blocked at the MLB level for the Rangers for the better part of the last couple of years, and he didn't really have a pathway to get there, and I think that sapped his potential to be a big league star. Other bit of news anyway from the WBC, Pete Alonso wants to play for Team USA. Basically said on foul territory, hey, D-Row, call me, and we'll see what happens there. Bad news for our Marlins fans. I know, Anthony, you're in our chat pretty frequently, so I hope you're in here tonight. But Ronny Henriquez, former Rangers farmhand who was dealt there, ultimately had a really nice season this year out of the bullpen. Played a lot better than I ever expected him to really reach after his struggles in Texas, and had a really nice year. Unfortunately, he will not be pitching until a minimum of spring training in 2027. He had surgery to repair a UCL in his throwing arm, and that's going to take some time to heal. He had an internal brace put in. It's going to take some time for that thing to get right, and we'll see him in 2027. Hopefully there won't be a lockout, but it's looking like inevitability at this point that we will have a lockout, so we'll see. But tough break there for the Marlins and Ronny Henriquez. The Mets deal became official with Luke Weaver, a couple other minor league deals anyway, Dominic Fletcher as well. But that's kind of your news and notes from the day. Let's head over to the Twitter sphere, or X, I guess you could call it now officially. They don't really use anything, or they don't really go with their old name anymore in anything. Nothing too much happening there. If you guys watch Monday Night Football, Phillip Rivers, old man Phillip Rivers, still throwing a couple of touchdown passes. But yeah, I saw that, Zach Pop to the Phillies. Yeah, I saw that one as well. But good on Phillip Rivers for getting his couple of touchdown passes. Of course, they got smoked by the 49ers, so their season in all likelihood was over when Daniel Jones went down. But Phillip Rivers putting nice, gallant effort to at least make it competitive, or at least try, because they really had nothing to go to at quarterback. Let's see. Any other news and notes we need to get into? Like I said, there wasn't a whole lot of activity I do think Christmas coming up here is going to have a chilling effect on the transactions for the next couple of days. Um, I expect one or two deals we might get that are getting close to being finalized. Like I said, I do expect one of the other second basemen to get dealt before Christmas. But outside of that, I think we're going to see things pretty much dry up until probably this weekend. There's not a whole lot of games over the next few days as well. So hopefully you guys will join us over the next few days. We're going to get into some trade talk as far as where teams are going to go to make these deals. Caleb, welcome in with the Jays adding salary and having lots of starting pitching. Can you see them trying to trade Barrios? 1,000% they are trying to punt him as far as they can. If you read any of the articles as far as what was going on during the World Series with Jose Barrios and how he was, how do I put this, was having difficulty adapting to his utilization in the World Series or lack thereof, Barrios is going to find himself on another roster. There will be a story that comes out one day that explains a lot more about what's going on behind the scenes. But from what I've picked up on from a couple of national reporters and some of the local beat reporters from the Blue Jays is that is a scenario nobody wants to touch with a 10-foot pole as far as, right on the subject, because I think they want to get more of the details from what's going on behind the scenes. But there is certain interest from the Jays' perspective to move on from Jose Barrios because of how things ended in the World Series. I'm not necessarily saying that he was a locker room cancer or anything like that, but I am saying his utilization in the World Series was problematic for him. And when you're a player going to the World Series and your team is trying to win the World Series and you're any kind of distraction other than trying to win, that's not a good look for you as a player. So, not that he's the greatest pitcher in the world, but he's going to have some questions to answer from teams that are looking to try to acquire him. Jays are looking to move off of that deal. Should they be able to find a trade partner? Absolutely. Prices are very high for starting pitching. He still has the ability to be a high-end number two when he's right. Strikeouts are his name of the game, and he can give you a little bit of length when he's on. When he's not, though, you're talking 8 runs by the end of the third inning. And, I think that variability in his performance is part of why he had his lack of utilization issues in the postseason. But ultimately, the Jays look like they're going to go elsewhere elsewhere with Barrios rather than having him on their roster. Andrew, why is the third base market slow? Teams need them. Third base, the market for third baseman, to me, there's a couple of really nice options, of course, with Bregman out there on the free agent side of things. Trade market, of course, there's guys that you could go for. Suarez on free agency. Trade market, you have Arenado and others. But all the second basemen, I think, are really catching the headlines of the trade market right now and on the free agency side of things. I think it's kind of mucking things up anyway for the second and third base market, and to a lesser extent, shortstops as well. Not that there are any good ones out there, but we shall see. Should the Padres trade for Barrios? They need starting pitching. They don't really have the money to add a guy like Barrios, but he would be a nice name if the Blue Jays were willing to eat a significant chunk of his remaining salary. Joseph, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us once again. Star Wars, thank you for joining us as well. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe. Got about 40 of you guys with us. Right now, we are sitting at 15 likes. Let's see if we can up that to at least 20 in the next few minutes here. But thank you for those hearts in the chat as well. Will the Yankees make any major moves via trade or signings? I would guarantee they're going to make a big signing, whether that's a guy like Bellinger, whether it's a Tucker, whether it's an Imai, whether it's a Valdez, or even a short-term deal on a guy like Justin Verlander that was brought up earlier. They're going to make a more significant move. Question is, how significant? Are we talking, number 3-4 type starter? Are we talking a back of the order bat? Are we talking a setup guy, a 6th, 7th, 8th inning guy? Are we talking an aircraft carrier? Going for, bringing back Bellinger, adding a Kyle Tucker, something big, or even on the trade side of things, bringing in Ketel Marte, Brendan Donovan, other names like that. There's some very interesting options for the Yankees at their disposal. I think they're kind of waiting for this Tucker-Bellinger saga to really play itself out. And then, of course, there is the interest in Bo Bichette as well, however nominal it may be, at least at the current moment. Zach Pop, absolutely. He did go to, I believe, the Phillies. Let me pull this up real quick. Just can't remember what the contract was he signed. I want to say it was a major league deal. News. Yeah, it was a major league deal. Okay. Salary figures have not been reported. Surprising to see Pop command a big league deal. We'll see how big league it turns into around the trade deadline, if he's still on the roster or not. But I think he's at least some depth option for that 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th range, to kind of bridge the gap to the back end of the bullpen. Is he Matt Strahm in this bullpen? No. But I do like the addition nonetheless. All right. Let's see. Just want to update one more time. We're not going to do a whole long video tonight because, like I said, there's not a whole lot to really go over. Jeff Mcneil, we'll get into a lot of the trade discussion over the Christmas break with no games really going on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. We'll probably have some middle of the afternoon lives. That way, we're going to be with family on Christmas Eve anyway. That's usually when we celebrate Christmas and do our Christmas thing. Mom and sister end up doing spaghetti, and that's usually what the missus does as well. Me and Pa usually end up having oyster stew, so that's kind of been our tradition for, 20, 30 years at this point. And then Christmas Day, we'll do ham, and we'll do heavenly potatoes. Basically just kind of like the cubed hash browns, essentially, with sour cream and cream of chicken and, lots and lots of cheese and all that kind of thing. It's really delicious and kind of a staple for us at Christmas. It's a must-have potluck thing for me. Every time I have a potluck at work, that's the one thing. I don't even have to say what I'm bringing. They already have it written down, so I'm excited to have some of that. But yeah, hope you guys have some really good Christmas plans with your family. If you don't celebrate Christmas or whatever holiday you may be celebrating, I hope you're enjoying at least spending some time with family and having a good time nonetheless. But our event, as far as how things will be planned out the rest of the week here, Monday, we're already doing our live right now. Tomorrow, we will have our live, probably a late one as well. Today and tomorrow, today being the video we're doing today, and tomorrow, the video we'll do tomorrow is going to be a late one. We'll probably start the week off with 2 really late videos around 11 o'clock. Wednesday, we'll have our live, like I said, middle of the afternoon, probably 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Same thing on Christmas Day. We'll probably do a little bit longer one on Christmas Day. And then rest of the week anyway, we'll probably go back to our 9 o'clock videos that we've been doing. So be sure to hit that like, subscribe if you haven't done so already. What teams do you think are in on Okamoto? I have only heard Pitt. I've heard Texas. I've heard the White Sox before they signed Murakami. I've heard the Padres. I've heard the Mariners to one extent. But as far as legitimate interest, your guess is as good as mine. Just like Murakami, his market is kind of moving in shadow. He could literally land almost anywhere, with the exception of probably 1 or 2 teams. But for me, it's going to all be about fit. It's going to be about where does he play? Does he want to play one specific position, or is he comfortable being a multi-utility player? If he's comfortable being a utility type of an infielder, playing 5 out of every 7 games, taking one game over there at second, another game over there at third, a couple over there at first, maybe a game at DH, and getting 5 out of 7 games in a week, I think there's going to be a lot more appeal for him to sign. If he wants an everyday spot, say at third base or second base, whatever the case may be, I think that limits his market a little bit, especially with the trade market having so many high-quality options. He's going to sign a nice deal. He's a little bit older than Murakami, but he's seen as a more well-rounded player. Better glove for sure, and much higher contact rate. Doesn't have the same swing and miss critics that Murakami does. But he is a little bit older. Doesn't have the same power. While his glove is good, it's not necessarily seen as elite. And he could fit, like I said, pretty much anywhere. So, I guess we could kind of make that a question in the chat, I suppose. Where do you guys think he signs? For me, I think Texas would make a lot of sense, but until they make a move with their roster, I don't think it would work. Other teams that kind of fit for me, I like Pittsburgh for him. Padres make a little bit of sense, but they just brought in Song. Mariners just look like they're going to make their move over there at second base. Red Sox could do it if they don't bring back Bregman, but I doubt it. Could the Mets have interest in him? I suppose, but again, I'm not really all the way there. So if you're telling me I had to pick where Okamoto goes, he ain't going to Colorado. I'm sure they would love to have him because they need anybody right now just to make that team a little bit better. But if you're telling me where does he end up, I think he has a really good chance to end up in San Francisco. Just a pure dart throw, but I don't know, West Coast player, fits really well, multi-positional flexibility. I think he'd be a great fit in San Francisco. But we shall see. All right, we're going to go ahead and head out for the evening. I got a long day tomorrow. Short video tonight. We'll probably have a short video tomorrow as well, probably in the 45-minute range. We'll get a little bit more trade talk as well, and get into a little bit more of the second base trade market. News is going to come a little bit scarce over the next couple of days. So hopefully we get one big move before Christmas break, but I'm not expecting it. Outside of maybe that second base market, I doubt we get any of those big three free agents to go. And we're going to get into our mid-afternoon lives on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and then again our normal 9 o'clock time the rest of the week thereafter. But be sure to hit that like, subscribe, turn on your notifications, and find us on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. You'll be notified when we do go live. Appreciate you guys joining us for a late live tonight. Thank you guys for your patience, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow night around 11 o'clock. Stay safe out there, everybody, and Merry Christmas.